So hello everyone, and a very, very warm welcome, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is our third session on the 7-point mind training that comes from the great master Atisha and transmitted into our lineage by Kampopa and then maintained afterwards by the Karmapas. Isn't it wonderful? We're alive. This is the good life. The good life, not in the worldly sense, but of all of our lives. We're here, we've got our wits about us, we have the most wonderful, wonderful Dharma you could ever imagine. So we should feel very, very happy, whatever the rest of life is doing to us or for us. This is as good as it gets. So in a spirit of gratitude, appreciation, happiness, let's turn our thoughts in as much compassion as we can to all of those not so fortunate, especially those really, really suffering. And let's do our beginning prayers, our bodhicitta prayers for all of them. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds, from this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through our practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long and be healthy. May they be well provided for. May they have good friends and find respect and live in places of peace, places of plenty. And most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for those good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. And may they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain great equanimity, free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamawati shameta shatrumam kurim arajite karota keori tejuwati oloyane bishuda nimale malapa naye kukure kaka grase grasana umuki paramuke amuki shametane sawa graha bandhanane nigri hidva Sawa pava pravadena vimukta marapasha satta pitta buddha mudra anudgatita savamare putsarita parishuddha biga santu savamara kamane. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our head on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. So we carry on from last week, and last week we moved on from the first of the 7 points about the practicing the preliminaries until they work, and into the second point, which is practice the 2 bodhicittas. And we saw there are verses about how to practice ultimate bodhicitta and how to practice relative bodhicitta. And we're going to return to those. When I studied Dharma first intensely, then the way we studied the texts was in 3 sweeps. First, you go through quite briefly, so that you get the idea of what the whole thing's about. And you're kind of in that space. Then the second time through is slowly, in detail, exploring all the ideas according to commentaries and your teacher's explanations. And there you see what it's really about. And then on a third sweep, you're mainly going through to clear up the things you didn't quite understand or any doubts that are triggered. It's a very, very excellent way to study. So that's, as those of you who've been with me for lots of these Zoom teachings, you'll know that's generally the way we do it. I go back to what we did before, and then we explore it in another way, or sometimes in more detail, and then we move on to the next bit, and usually the week afterwards we come back. And if you find that boring, then it probably means that your Dharma attitude to study is more of an intellectual curiosity, where you kind of switch off when you think, oh, I know that, I've heard that before, whereas the ideas that interest you. This is a practice text. It's telling us about practice and how to do it. So we need to really enjoy exploring it more. So I spent some time in the first and the second talks about point 1, first practice, the preliminaries. I won't spend a lot of time, but I will insist, it's so important. And we do basically the 4 ways of changing the mind until our mind's changed. That's the very foundation for everything else that follows. So last week we looked at the signs that your mind has changed, how you relate to your karma, your life circumstances, because of those 4. The natural outcome of those 4 should be that you really take refuge, from the heart, meaningfully, because you realize it's just so much suffering. And it's not all suffering in worldly terms. Of course, there's pleasure, there's beauty, there are uplifting moments in life, and whatever turns you on, nice sweet dessert after food, or breath of country air, of course it's lovely, but the price you pay for it is outrageous. You have to get born, you have to go through birth, aging, sickness, death, and all the rest of it, and it's very frustrating. So once you realize that suffering and karma, cause and effect, once you've got a start of an idea how all this works, why your life is happening to you in the way it is, why you meet the people you meet, why you've got the health you've got, and so on, then you realize 2 things. You want out of the suffering. It's just so unnecessary. Spoils everything. You want out of the suffering, and there must be more. A sacred life, a spiritual life, and you want that. You want to. So, part 1, the preliminaries, should have put you with all your heart in refuge and practice. And then, if you've got a Mahayana potential, like I'm sure we all have because we're here, then you will aspire to being a bodhisattva. So let's leave point 1 there, but it's so important. It's the foundation of a house, and a house without a good foundation, it's not going to last. There are going to be a lot of problems. So then we're in point 2, which is practice the 2 bodhicittas. So last week we saw ultimate and relative, but what does it mean? It means there are two aspects to you and to me. Now, depending, or if we think of most people here on planet Earth, one of those aspects is completely unknown, completely unawakened, absolutely not present. That's the ultimate bodhicitta, but that's who we really are. That's who we really are. That's the real you. And we saw last week that this analogy of sleep and dream is really relevant, because just now we're like sleepers, dreaming. We're in the dream of this life. And that's all there is. Our total sensorial reality, what we see, what we hear, and so on, is most people 100% that. But it changes all the time. It's impermanent. It's riddled with suffering, and then doesn't, birth, agency, all of that is going on. The real you, the real me, is the same. So the real you is the same as the real me. It's our ultimate identity. So we call it ultimate truth. Ultima means in the end. In the end, that's what we'll become. We'll become who we truly are. There's no suffering. There's never been any suffering there. It is pure. It is so happy, we call it blissful. It is so clear and wise. And it is filled with the power to help our fellow beings. That's who we really are. It's beautiful beyond words. It's meaningful beyond words. It's what all of this life is about, but for most people, they don't even know it exists, the true you. So we call that ultimate bodhicitta. We are studying here Atisha's teachings on mind training. We are studying them as they are presented in the Kagyu lineage, the lineage of Gampopa. So let's see what Gampopa says about ultimate bodhicitta, about the real you, or the real truth of this mind that we are experiencing now. You are your mind, I'm my mind, but the real truth of your mind and my mind is the same truth. So Gampopa quotes a very, very famous sutra, the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, which means the ornament of all the Mahayana sutras. And he says, of those, ultimate bodhicitta transcends the world. 1. Is without any speculative extreme. 2, that means without any mental activity as we know it. That's 2. Number 3, it's extremely clear. 3. Number 4, it has the ultimate meaning as its object. Next, it is unpolluted by anything, and it is unwavering. So, in other texts, we explore this at length, but let's just look briefly. Ultimate bodhicitta transcends the world, means it's like nothing here. There's no way we can say it's like whatever, We give people some idea, but it's not like anything here. Just like being awake is not like dreaming. You can have good dreams, bad dreams, and all of it, but they're all dream delusions. It's not the same as being awake. Awake is a quantum leap up from sleep and confusion and dream. So it transcends the world. The real you transcends all of this. Number two, it's without any mental activity. Now, particularly once we're Buddhist and we learn the Buddhist language and ideas and philosophy, then, yeah, that's needed. But you come to a point where you have to unlearn it. You have to be able to experience the present moment without putting labels on it. Now that's hard. That's really hard. So we learn Dharma. We learn all the Buddha's ideas so we can get rid of our wrong ideas, our confused ideas, and the ideas and mental activity that get us into trouble. So we learn beautiful being, we learn how to pray, we learn how to have kind thoughts, we learn how to label everything, the five aggregates and this and that, and this is what's going on, your mind's doing that. We get a whole new language that's very helpful. But when it comes to discovering ultimate reality, that language gets in the way. Every time your mind starts describing the experience you're having, if you're getting close to ultimate reality, you lose it. Does that make sense? Well, anyway, if it makes sense or not, that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so this true you is without any mental blah blah at all. And last week in the discussion afterwards, I had to be a bit hard on one of the participants because what was coming in was all the blah blah that makes this particular course, which confuses what we're doing in this course. The third point is extremely clear. There's absolutely no doubt, confusion. It is the very highest form of wisdom, but not wisdom with words and ideas and all that Dharma, blah, blah, blah. It is just total clarity. This Buddha mind, total clarity. Always has been, never changes, always will be. Totally clear about everything. All wisdom is there. And then it has the ultimate meaning as its object. This one's enough for a whole session. Has the ultimate meaning as its object. What's your object just now? Ken talking, right? You're seeing me, you're listening to the words, you've got the ideas as your intelligence's object. We're in a dualistic world of subject and object. We'll come back to this later in this session, but we're talking about awareness, but not awareness as we know it. How can you say? Still the expression from Star Trek. It's life, Spock, but not life as we know it, right? It's awareness, but not awareness in any of the ways we know it. It transcends this world. It's not intelligence, awareness that we develop in mindfulness. It's not like that. And so when we look at our awareness, is always two-sided, something to know, a knowing of that something. And this is not dualistic awareness. It knows itself without being dualistic. Now this, You can never explain in words. Nobody ever managed to do it. But when you meditate and you get the experience, yes, you'll understand what this is saying straight away. It knows itself. And there's very beautiful passages in Islam, Sufi, and in other faiths in Christianity that talk about this experience where God is only known by God. You cannot know God as an observer, and this ultimate state of mind cannot be known by our intelligence. When you're there, it knows what it is without being dualistic. Like I said, in words, the words are dualistic. It knows itself, two sides. But when you get there, well, it's a lovely place to be, and these words will make sense. Has the ultimate meaning as its object. It is unpolluted. That means three things. It's not polluted by negative emotions, harmful emotions, kleshas, mind poisons. It's not polluted by dualistic conceptual thinking, what's called the cognitive obscuration. And it's not polluted by past karma. We can be doing pretty well in meditation, but the power of past karmic mistakes can come and cloud it all up. So it's unpolluted by any of those three obscurations. And it is unwavering, never changes. It's not one day this, one day that. That's complicated. We need to understand that through the teachings on the three kayas, or the four kayas. So because of all those qualities, then the Mahayana Sutralamkaya says it's like a bright, steady flame when there is no breeze. So when teachers describe this, they say, imagine like a beautiful summer night. There's not a bit of breeze, and you have a big butter lamp, and the flame is perfectly still. It is so bright, and it lights up all around you that was dark without it, and it is perfectly still. This analogy is very useful for meditators, because when we meditate and we're trying to reach the ultimate truth of mind, shunyata and so on, then this is a very good reference. Is it like that? Totally bright and lucid, illuminating everything that happens and everyone with its compassion, totally still. So like we do in the prayers at the beginning, filled with every Buddha, every enlightened quality. So that's ultimate bodhicitta. And in this section of the practice that we're not going to go through quickly, there are 59 verses, but this second section, the two bodhicittas, is about practice. So we need to get it really clear. So the other aspect of bodhicitta, we call it relative bodhicitta because it relates to who we are. It relates to me, Ken. It relates to you. And your life and what's happening in your life, the world, like the deal of cards you've been given this time round. You, your body, your health, the people you've met, your good fortune, bad fortune, and so on. That's your raw material. So relative bodhicitta, relative relates to that. How can you use that? All of it, the good, the bad, and so on, everything. How can you use that to become who you really are? So relative bodhicitta has a definition. It's much easier. Ultimate bodhicitta is something other. We're not there yet. We don't know it yet. Relative bodhicitta has a very easy to understand definition. It is the longing to achieve the Buddha's enlightenment in order to help all sentient beings. The longing to achieve the Buddha's enlightenment in order to be able to help all sentient beings. So when we explore that, it's a longing. So this relates to us. We're good at longing. We are lifetime experts. We in not just this, but so many lifetimes. We've been longing for so many things. We really know how to do it. So then, because of the good foundations, because of the Buddha's teaching, then we're just longing for that liberation. Freedom. Freedom. Excuse me for my, how can you say, 20th century references. This is nothing to do with the Buddha's teaching. But, that very great concert at Woodstock it's an incredible story when you read about how it was put together. It was much more than it was ever intending to be. And then how Richie Havens turned up, and a lot of the other artists hadn't turned up because there were so many people going there, the roads were blocked. And so he had to make his numbers last long. And there's one number he sings where you think he's going to destroy his fingers on the guitar. It's called Freedom. It's a real freedom, but he keeps on singing it and singing it and singing it because the next artist, they were trying to find helicopters to get them in beyond the roadblocks. But freedom, it's beautiful for us. It's a beautiful word. The idea of being free. It really makes you tingle. This is the ultimate freedom from all the things that limit us, that spoil life and so on. Free of all of that. So we are longing to achieve the Buddha's freedom with all of its qualities. So we can really help all other sentient beings realize who they really are. So this is the relative bodhicitta. Then because of that longing, which we usually codify as aspiration bodhicitta, then we will actually do something to become Buddha. And we'll do the practice that we present as the 6 paramitas. So relative bodhicitta has an aspiration aspect, and then a practice aspect. And the aspiration is like the novice level of the actual practice of being a bodhisattva. So last week, when we were looking at the verses, then we saw that in ultimate bodhicitta we have 5 verses about how we actually practice. Now, beside those 5 verses, in some versions of this text, and there are different versions of this text, in some versions, along with the 59 verses, there are 1 or 2 little inserts of instructions. So the ultimate bodhicitta instructions are in 3 parts. There is a beginning, an introduction, which is not in the verses. There's the actual practice, which is in the 5 verses. And then there's the conclusion, which is in fact the 5th verse. An introduction, telling us what to do. The actual instructions, and see everything like a dream, examine the nature of unborn awareness, and so on. And then the fifth of those, in between sittings, how to relate to things, that's the third part. The bit that's not written in the 59 verses, the preparation, says, like for a meditation session, now we're looking at a practice session. First, take refuge. Then, give rise to bodhicitta. So we make the prayer of wanting to achieve enlightenment in order to benefit every sentient beings. We give rise to bodhicitta. And then we make different prayers, the ones that inspire us. And then it says, offer the 7 branches. 7 branches, we won't look into them here, we can do if you want. But we make prostration, we make refuge, we make offerings, we unload ourselves of our past heavy karma, we rejoice in the good deeds of other beings and so on. So we do all those preliminary prayers to get us in the right frame of mind. And then it says, sit up straight and breathe in and out 21 times without error. So we'll be looking at some of this in detail this morning. All right, the preparation before a session is very important to inspire yourself. What do we come? We come in, we sit down, we sit on our cushion, and then we don't just read the prayers, because that's what you're supposed to do. You really switch off the world. You get yourself back into bodhisattva mode. So we need to say the words to inspire us. And I think for most people, say them in English or French or whatever your language is, and say them with meaning. From time to time, do one of them slowly. Like if you normally start with 3, 4, 5 prayers, from time to time, do number 1, very slowly with all your heart. I take refuge. I, me, everything I am. My senses, everything I can do, all the knowledge I've acquired in this life, everything I am, I. Seek help and shelter. I take refuge. And really the feeling of surrendering yourself, trusting absolutely. And then, Buddha, we don't just say Buddha, finished. We think Buddha. Was Buddha? Who was Buddha? And so on and so on. And then on another session, prayer number 2, whatever it is, 7-branch prayer, or bodhicitta, you really think about it, mean it. That way, as the weeks go by, day after day session, you learn how to meaningfully pray. So it says we do the prayers to put us in the right frame of mind. And then it says sit straight. So for those of you who registered for this course, I sent out a document I put on the internet many, many years ago about posture. Posture is a real help. Some people physically are unable to sit in a proper, in a 7-point or 5-point posture. Yeah. If you can't, you can't. And many people come to Dharma when they're much older, and they didn't grow up in a culture where people sit on the floor cross-legged, so they have trouble, and you can do your best. But some of you are young. Some of you watching this, the reason you don't develop excellent posture, yogic posture, is laziness. Because it hurts. When you train, you need to go through a pain threshold. It doesn't need to hurt too much. You get help from a yoga teacher, somebody who's good at posture. You learn exercises that can help you. There are all sorts of exercises you can do where you for a few minutes, you pat your body all over like this and you rub your body and you stimulate, you get the circulation going. There are exercises you can do with your legs, yogic exercises. Then it makes it much easier. And there are other things you can do to open up your hips and so on. It's a learning, but the point is this. You go through pain for 1, 2, 3 weeks, and then the rest of your life you can sit in a good posture, and the benefits are amazing. But if you listen to your initial sort of laziness and you just want to sit and think anyway, the main thing's the mind, so you kind of sit a bit straight for the first 5 minutes, and then you go, no, it's not. It's amazing being a Dharma teacher. When you sit at the front and you look at all the people in the audience, in a meditation session, they start straight. But when you see how everybody kind of collapses, in 5-10 minutes, it's laziness. And you're ripping yourself off. Go through that pain, see just what you can manage for posture. And for your legs, if you can't sit with a Vajra posture, what most people call lotus posture, then there is the bodhisattva posture, which is a lot easier. And even if you can't do that, you can sit with your legs in a tailor posture, which is even more loose and easy to do. But you learn to sit straight and remain straight. To help you do that, you learn how to put your arms. I don't have the camera on the whole body, so that's why I sent you this internet document. You have your arms straight so that your elbows become straight. Then your shoulders are pushed up, it says, like a vulture's shoulder. When you do it, you feel like a vulture. You could sit on the top of a mountain looking for corpses, You put them up and you put your arms as straight as possible, and then you let them relax just a little bit. And if your arms are good, they're braces, they keep you up. You tuck your chin in a little bit. Anyone can do that. And you use your gaze according to your teacher's instruction. You learn how to put your tongue up against your palate so that you don't get a lot of saliva in the mouth. So and then your hands go 4 fingers beneath the navel. It's easy, you've got 4 fingers. So if you put, this finger that's tapping, that's your navel. You put your hand like that, and then you fold it outwards. You're in exactly the right place. You have one hand on top of the other and your arms straight. So once you get used to that, it might take a few weeks, then you can sit in a very, very helpful posture. Now, what Gampopa says is, I assure you, if a monkey or a baboon could stay like that, it would achieve enlightenment, because every part of the posture is affecting your inner energy channels and the 4 elements of which we're all made. So like the hands balance the water element, and so on and so on. We bring the elements into balance, and that posture, not at first in your week or 2 of pain, because you're in pain, but once you're used to it, it's naturally conducive to the mind settling. And for the first time, simply because of the posture, you might feel what it's like to be this unwavering candle flame. brings you peace. So whatever posture we can manage is very helpful. In the text from Atisha, it says the back straight. That is the most important thing. So you try and feel it as if it was a pile of coins, so the pile doesn't fall over. So anyway, we sit in as good a posture as possible, and then we do 21 or 25 in and out breaths, very mindfully, very peacefully. Just in and out, in and out. We do 25 of those, so our mind is nicely settled. Outside these ultimate bodhicitta sessions, you can do 21 or 25, counting the breaths. That gets you very used to mindfulness of breath. And we do the counting. Those of you who've done it, you know, you have to be aware of the in-breath, aware of holding the breath, aware of out. Then you can count one. As soon as you've lost awareness of the in-breath, thinking or whatever, you have to go back to 0. So we learn to get to 25, but we're not counting the breaths in this session. We are just becoming very peaceful. There's nothing but breath. It's very beautiful. This life breath. In, out. In, out. Like that. And so, yeah, that's the instructions that aren't in the verses. So then it says in the actual verses, see everything like a dream. Consider all dharmas as like a dream. So dharma is the Sanskrit word for phenomena. Everything that crops in your mind. So in some ultimate bodhicitta sessions, whatever is in your mind, see it like a dream. So we're just sitting there with our perfect posture, best posture possible, and letting things come and go, learning to see them like a dream. Memories, ideas, perceptions, something you smell, something you feel in your body, whatever it is, just letting it come and go and seeing it like a dream. Now, last week, when I explained this analogy the Buddha gave us of like a dream, then I explained a little bit about the 6 bardos and how waking state and dream, they are bardos 1 and 2. So now we're looking at how do we achieve bardo number 3, which is while we are human, experiencing Buddha mind, experiencing ultimate reality. Bardo number 3, so a different quantum state of mind, is experiencing ultimate truth. These instructions, 5 steps, how to do that. First, see everything like a dream. So last week, and I explained waking state and dream state, it was to explain how they are 2 very different states of mind. Remember, in the waking state, we have other people. We are one in a vast, endless universe where everyone else has their karma. There's group karma that's making the whole thing appear in general as it does. And then within that, we each have our individual karma. That's the waking state. When you go into dream, it's just 100% you and your stored up mental data. This week, we'll look at this dream-like analogy in a different way, although it's not so obvious. But sometimes you wake up from a dream and think, what the hell was that all about? I was there in Lapland talking with a penguin, and you think, ooh, dream world's pretty wacky. But then you remember, oh, I know. Day before yesterday, somebody was talking about Lapland. And then yesterday on the television, there was a documentary about penguins or about the Arctic. So you start to see, that's why I dreamt that. It's quite a nice bit of detective work when you work out what's happening. Or even more simply, I dreamt I was drowning, and then you wake up and you realize you need a pee. Something like that. Something's going on in your body that's affecting your dream reality. You can work it out. That crazy world of dreams has its own cause and effect. The images that come up, why they come up. Because of your conditioning, because of your past experience. You're totally in your head in the dream world. And you're in a strange part of your head that you're going to lose at death. It's all your lifetime's acquired data stored in your brain, in cells, neurons, and all that kind of thing. So there's a quantum difference between sleep and waking state. Today we're going to look more at the cause and effect. We're seeing what's coming up as we sit with discipline on the cushion, and we realize, without thinking about it too analytically, but we realize everything that's coming up for me is Ken's karma. It's been my life, and generated by karma. What occurs, the way I think about it, the way I relate to it. So just like a dream, it's an illusion made by causes. Unlike a dream, this is waking state, illusion, my illusion, generated by causes. Look around. Look at all the people you know. Everyone's in their own illusion. They're totally pickled in it. It's like a cucumber in a jar, a gherkin, a pickle. Everyone's in their own world, their own hopes and fears, their own translation of people. Someone who's your friend is their enemy, and all that kind of thing. Everyone is so much in their own world, and we are too. We're in an illusion generated by causality. And we're trying to wake up. But the first step is to practice that. Sometimes that's all we do. We sit there at the right posture. You don't do more than a couple of minutes because your mind wanders if you do long sessions. We do 2-3 strict minutes. Just observing our mind and realizing it's our dream. That's my dream. All the things I think about, remember, wow, all of it. That's Ken's dream coming up. I just get used to it, and it loosens it up, it frees it up. And then now step 2, which we must move on to today. We already had it last week, but today we look in more detail. Now, let me tell you the Tibetan first of all. So last week I gave you the Tibetan for see everything as dreamlike. Chunam mi lam to'osam. So this next line says, Maje rikpe shila che. English translator's nightmare. There's no simple English sentence that can really convey the weight in these words. Now, for instance, sorry, I'm scrolling through my screens and getting in a mess. The first one says ma je. unborn. Unborn. We have to explore this just now. What is born in Buddhist terms? Born means came into being. Something comes into being. Something that comes into being because of causes. Nothing happens just like that. If anything could happen just like that, me, Ken, I could turn into a cauliflower. I'd be here talking to you, then all of a sudden you'd see a cauliflower. It's not going to happen. I'm here with this body and this speech and these ideas and this Buddhist training through a whole load of causes. Cauliflowers are there through their own causes, cauliflower seeds, etc. Everything has causes. We might not know the causes, but everything is part of a causal process. Everything. So things come into being through causes and conditions. Then, as Buddha taught us, and as we discover, everything that comes into being through causes and conditions has a limited time span, and then it ends. This life, however long, 60, 70, 80, 90 years of life, had its causes already in past lives that are giving rise to it now. And it's got its duration, and then once the power of those causes is finished, it comes to an end. Somebody in your life, like your mother, your father, they were in your life through causes and conditions in past lives, and they were in your life for however long they were there through those causes and conditions. Then they're no longer an active part of your life. And so everything seems to be born. We have two levels of that in our experience. Things that come into being in our waking life, and some of them are seemingly quite long-lasting, but they have their causes. They seem to have come into being. A situation has arisen, it lasts, it ends. And then in our dream life, through much shorter term causes and conditions, we have dream experience. So now we've learned to see the dreamlike nature of the illusions of the waking state and the dream state. Now we are doing something with the unborn. What was never created by causes and conditions, or seemed to be created and come into being by causes and conditions. Now, to explore this further, to understand what's going on behind all of this training, it's wonderful if ever in this lifetime you get a chance to study Chandrakirti's teachings about coming into being. Arisen reality, born reality. So the first words, Majje, mean unborn. We're talking about Buddha mind, ultimate reality. Majje, then next word is Ji. Shi means fundamental being, basic being. It's got a lot of feeling of basis, foundation for everything. Ji, and then is the spelling's a bit particular in Tibetan. It's not the same shi as in Alaya, but anyway, kunshi, in case any of you are wondering. So anyway, this basic state, right? Majeshi, the unborn, unarisen, uncreated, fundamental state of being. Now, whether you see this as your being, fundamental state of mind, if you think of it as the universe, as the fundamental ground state of everything and everyone, that's what we're talking about. This unborn basis of everything, Maje Shila. Maje Rikpishe. And so then it's not just the basis of everything, but it's Rikpe. Rikpa means super awareness, right? It is the highest, best, clearest, most intelligent, most informed, most perfect knowing awareness possible. That's Rikpa. Rikpishi, this basis of everything, which is the finest awareness. It's the basis of everything, but that basis is Buddha's wisdom. That's what we're talking about. That finest awareness, Buddha wisdom, jhana. The 5 Buddha wisdoms, the 5 aspects of the one wisdom, whatever, that's what we're talking about. That which is the basis of your mind is the basis of the whole universe, is the basis of everything. And a basis means like God, the ultimate. This is something wonderful and sacred. So, Maje Rikpe Shila. And then there's the word Che. And this gets us into, normally it means analyze, right? But what we have to do, I mean, you can't analyze something till it's there, can you? If I say, analyze, look at something in front of you just now, If it's there, you can start thinking about it, analyzing it, checking it out. You can't if it's not there, something you've never met. Makes sense. It makes sense. So we need first to discover it. Then we need to get to know it better. Let's put it that way. This last word, che, here, in this sense, when it's explained by our teachers, means that first there is something to be discovered, this unborn, total clarity of wisdom, this is the basis of everything. First we need to discover it, and then once we've discovered it, then we need to get to know it more and more. It's a kind of playful translation for this term che, which normally means analyze. For me it works, maybe for you it works. You could check out, like when you say, check out this, check out that, check out this ultimate realities, wisdom that's the basis of everything. So first we need to discover it, and then we need to. So how do we do that? Today we're looking in more detail. First, I've explained posture. In the instructions, it says, first, do the right thing with the body. That's posture. Next, do the right thing with the mind. So now we're looking at the mind. Once you've got your body sorted, and the thing is, if you can really do those postures, especially the 7-point Vajra posture, then you can spend 3 hours like that and your body is not going to be affecting your mind. You're not going to be like sloppy meditators, like beginning, where you've got to stretch your legs and do a bit of this. Yeah. No. And your body is bothering you. Although it's a painful apprenticeship to get to know how to do that posture, that is how Gampopa could sit for 2 weeks without moving, because your body is all kind of locked up. It's like you've tied it in a knot, the bones all support each other, and then your body is sorted, you can be 100% in your mind, doing what you want with your mind. That's the advantage of posture there. And that's why our great masters learn perfect posture and spend a lot of time in it. Even though they've got wonderful minds, it's really such a tremendous support. So anyway, once the body is right, then the mind. What do we do with the mind? First of all, even if you've got your posture right, and it's really helping you to have a settled mind, you will find your mind, as a beginner, is busy. It is distracted, change one letter, distracted. It is distracted and distracted. It pulled here and there. And even when you're sitting quietly, and it feels quiet, then you start to realize in the background your mind's buzzing away so busily. You're kind of sitting there, look peaceful. In one way you feel very peaceful. In the background, the radio's still playing. It's going on. And even if you shut down that level of background, which is first level of busy mind, it's level 9, you get to background, that's level 8. When that one goes quiet, you find busy mind, level 7. Behind that, we have 9 levels of busy background, or 8 levels of busy background to work through. Your mind is busy in the sense that it's pulled away. It's distracted. It's really pulled. And every time it's pulled away, we lose the center. In Tibetan, that losing of the center is called tru. I think I mentioned it last time, we lose the center, we tru into a thought, into our body, into a sound, into whatever it is. We lose the center, and the center is whatever you're supposed to be doing. What the current practice instruction is. We lose it. So in order to master the busy mind, we need to practice shamatha. We need to still the mind. So to make a professional job of that, to not waste your time in this life, to use each day, each practice session to the full, in your good posture, then you practice with discipline shamatha. You learn shamatha to still the mind. We learn how to bring it back from its distraction, its destruction, its tropa. We bring it back to the breath. We bring it back to a visual object. We bring it back to one of the many focuses of shamatha. There are external focuses, internal focuses, sacred focuses, statues and so on, non-sacred focuses, a stone, a candle flame, a mountain, distant space. And then there is shamatha without a focus. We train with discipline. And then what happens? It's beautiful. Your mind becomes still, unstable, stably still. Such a relief. Such a relief. And And then we have to learn not to be drawn into the stillness, because you can waste a lot of time with that. Because it's, if we go back to the Buddha's teaching through Gampopa, he said, what happened in past lives? Gosh, if it's really true, you've had hundreds, thousands of past lives. In those lives, you must have met the Dharma, you must have meditated. What went wrong? Okay, you're doing well. You're here. You've got this far. It's wonderful. But you still got a long way to go. So what spoiled it? What went wrong? And Gampopa said there are 5 things. And he said all of the Buddha's teachings are to remedy those 5 things that spoiled it. And one of them is that we got involved with the peace and well-being of shamatha, which means we spend a lot of time so happy, peaceful. When Gampopa went to Milarepa, many of you know this story, he was a really good shamatha practicer. He could sit for 2 weeks without moving, going to the toilet, getting up to eat or anything, just go into absorption for 2 weeks, total peace. And so when Milarepa first met him, Milarepa said, what kind of meditation do you do? What's your experience? Now, Gampopa, now most people can't do that, 2-week shamatha session. And amongst his peers, when he was studying with the Geshes, he was like quite a star. And so he said, oh, I can sit for a long time, up to 2 weeks. And Milarepa says, show me. So Gampopa is kind of sort of sit there and go into peaceful meditation, which he can do instantly. It's one thing you learn to do when you train very well in shamatha. And then Milarepa said, stop. He said, you waste 2 weeks like that? It's like really telling him off. And Gampopa, who thought this, he said, yeah, what's wrong, boss? And then Milarepa said, I'll show you how to meditate. And then, because he's Milarepa, he says, sit with me. And they sit, and he experiences Milarepa's mind, Buddha mind, like the stable flame on a windless night, so pure, the radiance of Buddha's wisdom and loving compassion and so on. And then Gampopa actually freaks out at that point in the story. It says he starts tearing off his monk's robes because he wants to be like Milarepa. And Milarepa has to calm him down and say, whoa, steady. It's not by copying me on the outside that you get like this. You need to train your mind. So we need to develop shamatha without getting lost in it. But for that you need a teacher to show you how. But until we have a stable, clear mind, not distracted, and we can sit for 3 minutes just in peace, then that state of peace becomes a laboratory, because we're looking to find the truth of our mind. It's very hard to find that when the mind's busy and distracted here and there. But when it's peaceful, then you can really explore, check out, analyze this mind which is at peace. And we do that according to our teacher's instructions in many ways. We try and first find out, okay, now this peaceful mind, where is it? We try and actually feel, not thinking about it, no way. As it's happening, the peace, where is it? Is it in my head? Is it everywhere? Is it in my heart? You can feel it. This mind which isn't busy and thinking and all the rest of it. This peaceful, beautiful mind. We try and locate it and you can't find it. And then we think, Does it have a color? We're trying to experience that peace. And is it red? Is it blue? And so on and so on. The teacher gives you instructions. Now for the next week, the next 2 weeks, I want you to explore your peaceful mind in such and such a way. And we go through all of that, and every time, I'm sorry, I'm giving you, it's like telling you the last page of a novel, right? But what happens with all of that is you never find your mind. And nobody ever did. Buddha's teaching said nobody ever found this thing called mind, which is so obviously sort of in a way there, but when you look for it, you can't find it. It's like if you've got a feeling of being followed and you look behind and there's nobody there. Or you've got a feeling of being looked at and you look and there's nobody there. Nobody ever found anything that could be called mind. And so it says rest in the not finding. That's it. And it's renewed afresh every second, because every second we can't find it, even though we're looking. So this looking for the peaceful mind is called vipassana. Vipassana, or vipassana. And it's called, we translate the word, it's laktong in Tibetan, which means insight. Actually, it means higher sight. Literally, lak means higher. Best. Tong, seeing. Best seeing. Insight. So there now we've become very wise about our mind. Our own mind. And this is opening the door to the discovery of ultimate truth, of yourself. This feeling of you. This is what we're actually looking into. What feels like me? What feels like you? I mean, do you feel like you just now? Or do you feel like Ken Holmes? Or do you feel like the person who lives next door? Or do you feel like your dog? No, you feel like you. What is this feeling? And so when our mind is very peaceful, it's still there. And so bit by bit, we can check out, Che, this basis of everything, Ji, which is Rigpa, the highest clarity and wisdom, and which is Maje, unborn. It's not created by circumstances, it is, and always has been, and always will be. It's a wonderful experience when you first discover it. Problem is you can't keep that discovery. So the second verse that we've just been looking at, second instruction verse, which says check out this ultra-wise basis of everything which is unborn. Then the next line says, Nyempo nye jang rang sara rol. Ho ho ho. So the antidote is freed, if we say literally, in its own place, but if we put it in a more meaningful English, the antidote is freed of its own accord. I think we can just manage to do a bit about this verse today before we're finished the session already. And congratulations for staying awake so far. So the remedy is freed of its own accord. Now, in ordinary meditation practice, remedies are about bringing the mind back to what you're supposed to be doing, in the meditation session if it's been distracted. So the remedy is pulling the mind back to the breath or to its object or staring straight ahead into space. Whatever the instruction is, you do that, and the remedy is how you fix it when it goes wrong. And especially when you get tired and sluggish, how you remedy that. You've gone kind of dull and you're sitting on your cushion, but you're kind of doing something, you're stupid, and you have to wake yourself up. Or your mind's too busy and excited and distracted, and you have to refocus. That's the normal meaning of remedies. But when we get to this checking out the truth of your mind, truth of everything, with the help of a meditation instructor, then the remedies here means something different. It means labeling. One, like you get the experience, and then some little voice, some wicked, horrible, I was going to swear, but I better not swear, voice in your head says this is non-dual awareness. And as soon as your mind is saying this is non-dual awareness, you've lost the experience. And you want to grab it by the throat, punch it and say, go away, stop talking about my experience. Don't need you anymore. I want the experience, direct, fresh, living in this moment, being Buddha, not a little voice from the past saying, this is thought-free. But as soon as you've thought it's thought-free, you're thinking. It's not thought-free, and so on. So there is that kind of descriptive voice is one thing. But another thing, very important, I hope you don't do it, but I think everybody does it, is when you've had sacred, profound experience and Buddha nature experience, voidness, shunyata, Buddha mind, whatever you call it, this ground of everything, then like all experiences, we create a memory. And sometimes that memory of what the ultimate is like, we try and sort of get back to it by reproducing the memory. I'll give you an example. It actually comes from Tibetan Lamas. It's not just Ken's example, this one. It's like you remember a past boyfriend or girlfriend and you go to kiss them. But of course they're not there. The real person isn't there. They've gone. You can't kiss a memory of a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But meditators want to reproduce Buddha mind. And that really gets in the way. Now, as we're trying to experience it, you can only experience it live in this moment, the non-finding of mind, of whatever it is, in this moment, staying in that non-finding. So if you are pulling up a memory in the hope of getting yourself into that state, in no way. So people will tend to do that rather than do the proper work of finding your mind as it is in this moment. We're trying to reproduce, we bring up a memory. So we learn when that process starts to happen and you're remembering your sacred moments with your guru or sacred moments when you had deep experience, or you're trying to bring back that experience, we learn to let go. Then we learn to let go more and more quickly, more and more efficiently, when we are either talking about the deep experience that's happening just now or working with memories. We learn to recognize that's going on, very subtle background awareness, and to stop doing it, stop it. Till in the end, that becomes an automated process. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. The thing just comes up and dissolves all by itself. Problem gone all by itself. We have to learn to do this. We have to learn to do this within the reality of our meditation process, and certainly with the help of our teacher. So that's why it says the remedy, he says, goes away in its own place. It comes up and it goes all by itself. You don't need to deal with it. Or of its own accord is a kind of that makes sense once you're trained. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's one of the qualities of Mahamudra mind, Dzogchen mind. You just sit there and your mind sorts itself out. You don't need to do so much. Before, when we're training in shamatha, when we're training in vipassana, we really need to make effort. Even learning how to be so peaceful and relaxed requires more and more subtle effort. So here, with training, then you get what's called, what's the word? Pliability, it's like flexibility. You just do it. I think martial arts is perhaps a good example. You do the rigorous training, but when it comes to an actual combat, it's all happening too spontaneously. You just fight efficiently. It's spontaneous. So anyway, what we looked at today were those verses. Let even the antidote be freed in its own place. And then verse 4 of the instruction, because we've done that, we've examined the nature of the mind, the unborn awareness, and we're getting rid of our mind's efforts to fake it and to describe it and so on. Then we learn how to remain in that timeless pure state, which is called the alaya. So now alaya comes up in two ways in Buddhist training. There is alaya in this teaching, in Mahamudra, in Dzogchen, alaya full stop. And there's alaya vijnana, which is the all-basis consciousness, which is part of our worldly mind, part of these 8 consciousnesses that disappear as we get more and more enlightened. So this is not alaya vijnana. We're not remaining in all-basis consciousness. We're remaining in Buddha mind, which is the wise basis of everything. At first, with the teacher's instructions and following this 4-point, 5-point training, we will be in Buddha mind for just glimpses. And then the glimpses get longer. And then they become more stable. And we get to a point where there is, what's it called? A flip into a default state of Buddha mind. First bodhisattva level, if we look at it that way. Just now, we're a human mind, a sentient being, stream of consciousness, trying to break through to this third of our 6 bardos, which is awareness of Buddha mind while we're alive and human. We're a human trying to break through into that state and then getting glimpses of it, but it will become so stable that then that becomes basically who you are. And then on the surface, there's your history. Can't get you anymore in any way. It's just a superficial detail. So that fourth instruction, when it says remain in the alaya, when we get there, then with our teacher's help, we learn about being there and how to stabilize the experience. So thank you very much. That's my blah 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 session for today, unpacking the meaning of these verses. We've got one more line to go about ultimate bodhicitta training, which is about in-between session. These first 4 verses are what we do when we're sitting on the cushion. So whatever was meaningful and good and virtuous, while it's still all there and sparkling clean and unspoilt by human thought, let's share it, give it away 100% to everybody as a gift. May whatever virtue was created by our session contribute to the state of omniscience being attained. By the main enemy, our mind's defilements, being completely defeated. And through that, may each and every sentient being become free from the ocean of existence, troubled by its waves of rebirth, aging, sickness, and death. May this precious bodhicitta arise in those in whom it's not yet arisen, and in those in whom it has arisen, may its development know no setbacks. May it increase ever more and more. And through our virtue may we quickly achieve Mahamudra and establish every single sentient being in that same accomplishment. Oh, thank you very much. And over to you. Now, if you've got something you'd like to add or any questions. And hello. I didn't say hello to at the beginning.
Yeah. I suppose what I struggle with a little bit with what you've described in this session, particularly around posture and also the shamatha, is the balance between tension and being relaxed. And you can be in a posture so sort of intensely you're actually creating quite a bit of pain and discomfort for yourself, or you can just be a jellyfish and sort of completely let everything go. But also with shamatha, you can be quite strict and very strictly come back to the focus each time, but it's almost a bit of a battle. Whereas sometimes I find if I just relax, watch the thoughts go, and it's as long as you're not feeding them or getting drawn into them, it's a bit like a flywheel that it will spin and spin, but eventually it slows down. So I suppose it's finding the balance, and I just wonder if you have any advice or thoughts or guidance on
that. Yeah, you need a teacher, because we're all so different, and not only just different now and in this life, and coming from different places through this life's history, than in our past lives. Some of us have been meditating and been Buddhists and practicing many, many times. Other people came to it recently in terms of lives. And so even though your teacher might not at all know about your past lives, they don't have that clarity of mind, but by the way you are, what happens when you meditate, what you come back to them with, once you're in a dialogue and they get to see how you are, then they'll give meditation instructions that suit. So that's in general. DIY for this do it yourself. You can do a lot, but you won't be using your precious days and hours as efficiently as you can do when you have a really competent teacher. And so if you can be fast-tracked, and if you're able to just relax and watch your thoughts and take it from there, as some people are, that's great. But for most people, the discipline of shamatha is necessary and very, very helpful. I remember my best friend. So now I'm back in 1970, right? I'm in Dharamsala. My best friend had gone over to Darjeeling to see Kala Rinpoche, the first Kala Rinpoche, and receive meditation instruction. And when he was talking about meditation, Kala Rinpoche said, you need to learn shamatha until you can go into shamatha like this. And then Kala Rinpoche just sat in front of him, went into perfect shamatha in 1 second. Okay? Now, if you can do this, and your mind is at peace and stable, and you're working towards that, then you have the most wonderful laboratory for exploring your mind and doing these deep teachings, however the teacher handles you, watching your thoughts come and go and looking into them, all of that. There's so much, and each person needs to be handled differently to bring out the best in them in the quickest possible way there is. But for most people, shamatha, now when we are learning to bring the mind back and we're learning posture and so on, it's laborious. It's the worst part of our Dharma journey. You're a beginner, it's painful, you're getting nowhere, you've not got lots of profound experiences. The more you see your mind, the more you think I'm mad, because it's just crazy, going here, going there. And then, you'd be ashamed to put a movie of your mind on YouTube, where your mind goes, what it thinks, how scattered it is. To have everybody looking at that would be very, very embarrassing. So the more we do, it's not immediately fruitful unless you've had wonderful past lives. Then you can, things happen very quickly. But for most people, the hardest work, and it takes time, it takes years before there are those first moments of true peace and longer moments of true peace and so on. But there we need discipline and we need effort, and the outcome, you've done it. Once you've overcome distraction, it doesn't matter what the distraction is, you know the feel of it. You know how to handle it, you know not to be pulled into it, you know how to keep your mind. It's a victory. It's a victory that lifetimes have been leading up to. But it's so hard. But for most people, that is very beneficial. If we have a choice where we're going in this life, at least in this life, if you can't become Buddha and great bodhisattva and those wonderful things, do you want to leave this life with your mind as randomly distracted as it is? Or do you want to leave this life master of your own mind, or mistress of your own mind, where you are not the puppet of your mind? The mind is your tool to use very skillfully. I know what I pick, but the only way we can get there is by dealing with this bulk of history of distraction that we are, and that the modern world really leads us into. Does that help at all?
So I think from what you've said, it's kind of helped me refine the question a bit, in that there's a state of having absolutely no thoughts that you could sort of potentially get yourself into, or there's okay, there's thoughts, there's appearances and so on, but you're not getting drawn into them. I suppose, which are we looking to move towards?
Depends which tradition you follow. And the meaning of no thought, does it mean there are no thoughts at all present? Or that, remember the word thought actually means mental activity, thoughts, feelings, memories, fantasies, all of that. Does it mean there's none of that? Or does it mean it's there and it's totally powerless, so that we're effectively in a different state of well-being, of bliss, of clarity, of deep love and compassion, but the thought doesn't get you. So depending which Buddhist tradition, and then, so in my tradition, the Kagyu tradition, the basic meaning of where we are going is a state in which thought, mental activity can exist, but it doesn't have any power at all over you. So it's, that's what we mean. And in fact, through what we're doing here, discovering our Buddha mind, then worldly appearances become nirmanakaya. Can't describe that. But when you get there, then mental activity, sensorial experience becomes part of your Buddha mind, nirmanakaya. So it's not a problem. We're not aiming for a kind of a blank state, but that having been said, if we do, in our tradition it's Mahamudra meditation, there will be wonderful moments when there's no mental activity at all. That's kind of a lovely experience, and part of our advanced training is not to be attached to that. It's so nice. It's so nice. And so you can get attached to it, and you can think, bother, I've lost it, when the busy worldly mind acts up again. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Thank you.
But you can't just jump into that. And last week I was talking about what can be a very profound oral instruction from a realized master to a person, or sometimes these days to a group of people, which is about finding the space between thoughts and the space in which, between mental activities, or the space in which all mental activities take place. And some teachers give direct instructions on this, you let your mind just be and do what it does, but try and find the space in which it's happening, or the space in between one moment of mental activity and the next moment. So some teachers give instructions on that, and it might work for some people, or it might work to a certain level. So people really like those, a lot of Dzogchen teachers give that type of instruction. And Khenpo Sultim in the Kagyu tradition gave that type of instruction, which is a pointer in the right direction. But everything you are, your mind, your history, the whole way you think, react, everything you are is a huge bulk of stuff to work with. And if we want to really gain victory over our mind once and for all, then developing really good discipline, shamatha, within shamatha, developing vipassana. It's thorough, it will guaranteed work. Whereas if we just try and find the space in between, the space around, it will be quite inspiring, but it won't take you all the way along the bodhisattva path.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question, please.
Uh-huh.
I was zooming out actually, and looking. So the first of the 7 points is to train in the preliminaries, which in my mind I was understanding as like really developing a sense of renunciation. And then the second point, it's so funny. I've heard this text numerous times, but it's only this time that I've really pondered it and thought, well, I'm wondering why we first train in like ultimate view. And you also referenced how one trains in ultimate view, like even during meditation, looking at thoughts and looking at that dreamlike quality. Could you say something about that as an order? Because I think for me, I would have found it easier to look at the relative stuff first.
Yeah, and most bodhisattva teachings, Mahayana teachings, not just teaching methods, when there's a whole path to follow, do start with relative bodhicitta. And then gradually, when it's appropriate, as somebody is ready, bring in shunyata, ultimate bodhicitta. So Atisha's approach is exceptional. That's something to know. We're not in the usual run-of-the-mill bodhisattva teachings, not just in India, with Tibetan teachers as well. So this is unusual. It's partly to do with Atisha's own story, where in India first he was a very accomplished Vajrayana master, lots of siddhis and powers. Then he went for 12 years to Selingpa in Southeast Asia, and there with Selingpa he did the equivalent of like a Mahamudra, full Mahamudra training. Then he came back to India to Vikramashila and became very respected as a master with that. So he knew Buddha, his mind knew Buddha. And a bit like Taisitupa these days, so often Taisitupa tells everybody, you are Buddha. We are all really Buddha. He's quite unusual in that respect compared with most masters. So Atisha was like that, not going around telling the public that, but wherever possible, teaching from, this is who we really are. This is what it's really about. The rest is illusion. So understanding this from the beginning, even if we only understand about it, gives us a perspective of where we're going. We're not just me, Ken, the human being, becoming a better human being, eventually a bodhisattva, and then life after life, be a better and better person, more and more skills and qualities, eventually a Buddha. We're saying it's in the Vajrayana spirit. It's here, right now. This is the real truth. We're all asleep, ignoring that truth. So that was Atisha's starting point. And it's one of the reasons the 7-point mind training was kept as a secret teaching for those who were only those who were ready for the first, I think, 5, 6 generations. The same thing happens if we come now to our Kagyu tradition and the Mahamudra teachings. We go through all of these steps of the preliminaries, the foundations, and then the next thing is shamatha training. And there are so many steps, but in the Kagyu teachings, at the beginning of the shamatha training, take a stone, look at a stone, all the different, before we get into those singular practices, we get thrown in at the deep end with the 6-point practice of Tilopa to Naropa and understanding the basic nature of mind. So it's, how can you say, however much that works for somebody, that much they have the understanding of the whole journey. This is the awakened state. It's here all the time. It's not just in the future after hundreds of lifetimes. It's all the time. It's the real me. It's the real everything. And I'm doing all this relative work in order to wake up to that state. And so when people do these 5 points that we're doing, seeing it all like dreams, examining the nature of unborn wisdom and so on, each person, some people, they'll be very slow, it'll be very hard, but nevertheless, it still gives them the idea. But for other people, it will really start to awaken that dimension of themselves and make all of the relative work, actually bloody hard work, easier, right? You know, really being generous, really practicing right conduct, really being forbearing. We need to bring all of those to perfection. So if we have this taste of our own truth, of the real truth, it puts all of that in such a different perspective. It's so precious. Does that help, Vicky?
Yes, it does. And very much so. It puts it into context. And I guess my sub point was about this practical application. I suppose this is the first time that I've particularly heard it taught as a practical application of how one does that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're sitting on the cushion. So when the first instruction is to train to view all phenomena as dreamlike, I heard you say, you know, you could look at your thoughts and do that. And I guess the next point about examining the nature of unborn awareness, that could be, you know, exploring emptiness, could it? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, when here we've gone one level deeper, right? When you're actually practicing, nearly always, if you're doing 7-point mind training, you're doing it with a teacher, and then the teacher expands on all of this. So the unborn awareness actually is inseparable from seeing everything as dreams. Because when we sit there in proper posture, seeing everything as dream, what's happening? Where does the next thought come from? It's not anywhere. It's not kind of lining up in the wings or in a corridor waiting to come into your mind. It's nowhere. And then it's there for not even a second before it's changed. And where has it gone? It's not gone anywhere. That is it, shunyata. It has no being of its own where, you know, like on a stage, when they close the curtains and people have to change all the chairs, the tables, the black cloth. It's not that it's somewhere. Each moment was nowhere before it happened. It goes nowhere. It's just not there anymore. After it's happened, it doesn't even last a split second. It's ephemeral. That is shunyata. So at first, we see that's what happens with dreams. Something comes into your head. It's so real for, you know, in a dream, all of a sudden you're in this landscape, it's there and so on. And then it's gone. And so it's helpful here we're looking at how we break through into ultimate truth. But by the way, it's also very helpful in dealing with relative truth, because by not making Akam Rinpoche always used to say, making it too solid. By making what goes on in our mind so solid, we get really upset, we get really too excited, too down, whatever. And so there's a sort of, you say, cool, sort of relaxed, more relaxed attitude. We don't take things as dramatically. It's beautiful. You know, the word karma in Sanskrit and the word drama in Greek mean the same thing, action. You know, that's why it's acting is drama. But it just is the word for action. Karma, drama. I mean, that, you couldn't invent it. It's just too good, right? We turn our karma into a drama, except it's already a drama, you know. So it's less dramatic, it's a dream. In real life, it's not going to go away, but we don't need to, you know, it doesn't need to affect us so much.
Thank you. I'm quite an expert at karma and drama. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've done the dedication, so back again next week for those who can bear it, and have a good week in between. Take good care.
How very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Try everyone.